Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube. So I'm currently working on a couple of bigger videos, but once this event took place in Paris, I knew I needed to make a video about this. I'm going to show you some connections to this that you may not have seen yet, because this falls right in line with the kind of work I've been doing for many years. There are a lot of things happening right now symbolically that really stood out to me. On the 11th of September 2017, I uploaded a video called First the Statues and Then the Churches. In this video, I was showing you examples of how people around the world, specifically in America, are tearing down statues of our history because they don't necessarily like what they stand for, or at least what they perceived them to stand for. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened. If you go through history, you'll find that other fallen empires have gone through the same steps. A major tool of this beast system and the end of an empire is to destroy its history. That way it can rebuild anew. For thousands of years, this beast system builds empires, destroys, and then builds again, constantly moving towards a one-world order, a one-world system. So in this video, I was talking about the rise of the anger, the violence, the nastiness, the darkness in people. We're seeing a real hatred spread across the land. Over the last few years, it's mainly been focused on politics, right versus left. And the hatred and the violence coming out of the left is startling. But what I'd stated in this video is that there will be a shift, and I've been waiting on this shift for a while, where all of this anger, resentment, hatred, and violence that's focused politically on just the right would eventually shift over to Christians and Christianity. This, of course, is why I titled it First the Statues and Then the Churches. Well, now, since we've seen this event in Paris unfold, I believe that we're starting to see that shift. So I'll show you the way that things work with me and the way I connect things, because this idea of the churches burning has been around now for a little while. Typically here on the channel we'll follow a lot of trends, subliminal messages, language of symbols, things like this. And I want to show you this trend, the way I've seen it connecting. Because this really is about the end of the church age, it's also about an attack on Christianity. And for this New World Order to progress, it has to extinguish Christianity and Christians. But keeping that in mind, this is from a movie called Lords of Chaos. It just came out about a month ago or so. Now, this is based on a true story about a Norwegian death metal band called Mayhem. Many people called them the most evil band in the world. So the members of this band got off on burning down churches. They did a lot worse than that, but this is just one of the ways they acted out. And they show this in the film. They show these kids burning down churches. So it's interesting. You're looking at the man that's responsible for burning down churches in America. He'd actually burned down 3 black churches down in Louisiana. So a few interesting things about him. One is that his father is a police officer, but number 2 is he was in a heavy metal band. So this is where we're using our spiritual eyes, right, to read between the lines. So here's an image of the guy, and of course you see the upside down cross there, black metal. This is what he was into. And he'd actually built an altar for a pagan god. So I don't think it'd be any kind of a big leap to think that there's a good chance this young man actually saw Lords of Chaos. It was about, what they say, the most evil band in the world. So I imagine a lot of people into metal and heavy metal and black metal would be really into this. And even if he didn't see it, he's still acting out the same processes. This is a spirit at work, and it's attacking churches. But more than just attacking the building, I believe it's attacking Christianity. It's attacking Christians. It's literally a battle against God. It's also important to realize that before this fire in Paris, churches have been being burned down in France and Europe for a little while now. France has seen a spate of attacks against Catholic churches since the start of the year. Vandalism that's included arson and desecration. Vandals have smashed statues, knocked down tabernacles, scattered or destroyed the Eucharist, and torn down crosses, sparking fears of a rise in anti-Catholic sentiment in the country. And even with that, I don't think it's just about the Catholics. This is more of an attack on Christians in general, Christianity. This is a spirit at work here. Last Sunday, the historic church of Saint Sulpice in Paris was set on fire just after midday mass on Sunday. Although no one was injured, police are still investigating the attack, which firefighters have confidently attributed to arson. And just last month, at the St. Nicholas Catholic Church in France, a statue of the Virgin Mary was found smashed, and the altar cross had been thrown on the ground. Also in February, another church in France, there was an altar cloth was burned and crosses and statues of saints were smashed. And this is from an article from the Voice of Europe. It says, in a rare candid moment, German media reported at least 200 cases of damaged churches in the region of Bavaria alone every year. In addition, attacks on summit crosses are also increasing in the region's mountains. Crosses on several mountaintops have been toppled and destroyed with axes or saws. And this spirit is staying very busy. It's not just at work in Europe. It's not just at work in America. This is happening all over the world. We even have stories like this right here. Anger as France sees 10 Catholic churches attacked in 1 week. The 7-day spree of vandalism has seen Catholic churches targeted across France, sparking fears of a fresh wave of anti-Christian sentiment in the country, including one church being defiled with human excrement. So again, this is a spirit we're seeing manifest, and we're seeing it increase in activity. This headline right here says it all to me. Notre Dame Cathedral to be rebuilt as what? A multicultural center, Christian faith being disassembled. If we even get to see this be rebuilt, it'll be very interesting to see what they put in place. But we're already starting to see the narrative play out here. This will have something to do with the one world order, pulling all the religions in together under one. And I'm sorry to say, but Catholicism has betrayed so many of you. Catholicism is going to play a massive role in this. In my opinion, Pope Francis is playing his role. Right here you see, this is from 2014. Pope Francis and Rick Warren to unite for global Chrislam conference. This is the merging of Christianity and Islam. So this headline is from just 1 year later. In New York, Pope Francis embraced Chrislam and laid a foundation for a one-world religion. And now we have this story from 2019. Vatican officially releases Chrislam logo for Pope Francis' upcoming Servant of Hope tour to the Muslim nation of Morocco. But as you can see the logo there in the center, and that's Chrislam. That's a merging of the Christian symbolism along with the symbolism from Islam. So do you see how we follow that thread and see how Pope Francis has been hard at work over the last few years to merge all of the religions? Once again, the end game is the one world system. So this right here is from iPetGoat 2. It's an animation. It's a startling example of lesser magic, I believe, predictive programming. My friend Casey from Enter the Stars did a video recently where he showed this, and it was an excellent catch. iPetGoat 2 is all about the end times. It's very coded, it's very deep, and I've seen a lot of people do different interpretations on this. I've done some myself. Near the end of the video, you have this Christ figure coming out of a massive vagina symbol, and behind him, it looks to be Notre Dame. So as he floats down the stream on this little canoe, just over his shoulder, you see the collapse of the church. When I originally broke this down, I saw this as the end of the church age and the beginning of the one world system, because again, they have to get rid of the Christians. They have to get rid of Christianity to pull all this together. So it's a very interesting symbol that plays out here, specifically, again, that this is all concerning the end times and the end days. And this is a narrative that myself and many others have seen playing out for several years now. This is also why I've personally wondered before if the Antichrist, maybe it's not somebody we know or have seen yet, but perhaps he'll show up and he'll look much like this. much like the image of Jesus that we've been given through so many years, which obviously isn't really him. But perhaps this imposter shows up at the end. Perhaps this would be the actual Antichrist, after the end of the church age, after they've destroyed the churches and Christianity. And that's just one of my theories. Again, I've done videos on this very same subject over the last few years, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. So before I get to the final clue, I'll just share a few more strange anomalies surrounding this fire. So since the event over the last few days, now we're getting a lot of people saying that they believe they see images in the fire. And this right here is the first one. Many people think that they actually see Jesus standing in the fire there. And here's another image of that. Again, some people believe that that's the image of Christ among all the embers, all the fire. But even more interesting, there's this image here. Many people believe that there's an image of a face, a menacing, angry face among the fire here, watching everything burn. Can you see it? And here's another shot of it as well. A better shot, I think a little more clear. But it does appear to be some kind of a face right there in the fire. And I know, obviously, our minds can play tricks on us and we can create images out of our mind that aren't there, but just thought this was interesting because there's a lot of people talking about it. And one of the reasons I found the faces in the fire and the smoke interesting is this isn't the first time we've seen something like this. Some of you know that I made a movie over 10 years ago now called The Scariest Movie Ever Made. It's been up and down off of YouTube and other sites for years, and you can still find it out there in several different places, including my website. The point I bring that up is I actually bookmarked my movie with these images of the faces and the smoke from the September event. If you're curious, you can do any kind of a search and look these kinds of things up, and there's still some images out there to be found. And this isn't just some fringe topic. I remember back when it first started, back when the event took place, mainstream news was actually running stories on all the faces that appeared in all the smoke. Now, I don't believe that's an accident. I believe 911 was one of the biggest satanic rituals that's ever taken place in public in this world, in our history. And it really was a release of these dark entities. So here's the other piece of the puzzle that I wanted to share with you, and I believe it's huge. Fire in basement crypt at St. John the Divine forces Palm Sunday worshippers outside. It's not so much about just that story, but it really has to do with the fire breaking out at that particular church just a couple days ago, right around the time of the event in Paris. Some of you that's followed my work for quite a while know that I always refer back to St. John's Pillars. Because much like I Pet Goat 2, this is another example of lesser magic in my opinion, the predictive programming for the spiritual eyes. This is something placed before our very eyes that is set to happen. Here's just a few of the images, and I'll show you a few more here in just a moment, but everything you need to know about the end times, as far as I'm concerned, is encompassed in St. John's Pillars. Now, of course, you've got the Kabbalistic tree of life there in the center. Bottom right, you've got your so-called Illuminati symbol, or the all-seeing eye symbolism there. You have the creepy man in a hood exposing just one of his eyes. More importantly, we see the destruction of New York City. I have a friend named Jonathan Kleck who broke the money code many years ago. There's a lot of symbolism on our money. A lot of it has to do with the September events that took place in America, but there's a couple of events on our money that haven't happened yet. And one of those events just happened to be a tsunami. It's like a tsunami wave taking over New York City. You can look this up for yourself, but there are people all around the world for the last several years who have been having dreams and visions of New York City being wiped out by a tsunami, in some connection to a nuke going off, perhaps in the ocean or somewhere in the city itself. And if you're one of those people, please share your story down below in the comments. I'd love to hear what you've been seeing or what your vision was. And here's another really important image. It's right there in the center, and you see the birthing of a child, right? You see the head crowning, I guess they call it, coming out of the birth canal. Underneath we see the lamb, but more importantly, I believe, and have always interpreted this as the true birthing of the Antichrist. Like, this is when he appears. He's not going to be a baby. He'll be a full-grown person. This is going to launch his time on earth, the 3.5-year reign. And again, these are from St. John's Pillars. So do we really think this is all just a coincidence? We're seeing a pattern of churches being attacked and destroyed. And then within 24 hours of the Paris fire, we have a fire at the St. John's Cathedral in New York City, where they have St. John's pillars, which in my opinion is some of the most prophetic artwork I've ever seen in my entire life, right there before our very eyes. Is this all just a coincidence? I don't think so. This is a time to really use our spiritual eyes, and a lot of us see the writing on the wall and understand what's happening here. I believe we're getting very close. I believe we're getting very close to the event or the events and to the revealing of the Antichrist. But I've been watching for these things for many years. It's very important to know which side you're on when it comes to all of this, because there's only two. And I'm not trying to be a fearmonger or scare people. I just do what I do here. I follow the connections. I follow the threads. I look for the messages in between the lines. But I don't think you'll see this attack on churches dying out anytime soon. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys. As I said, I'm working on a couple of bigger videos. One of them should be up hopefully the next few days. But until then, don't live in fear of these things. It is important for us to watch. It's also very important for us to understand what time it is. So thanks as always for watching my video, you guys. Take care out there, okay? And I'll talk to you a little later.